Haruhama, the kombucha mama, mother to millions of bacteria around the world, some of which might even be in your home, in your body, in your heart, in your gut. Maybe you started your business with our culture, whatever it is. I am so eternally grateful that you are here. And I'm super excited. A dear friend of mine is joining us today for Mama Monday. So Cheryl, go ahead and request to join, and I'll get you live here in just a minute. But I'm super thrilled. Cheryl Paswater founded Contraband Ferments in New York City. She's also been working her little patootie off to become a functional medicine practitioner. And I am so excited to have this conversation with her today because we can talk about a whole gamut of different things. Feeling better. And if you have any fermentation questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Cheryl is an expert and a business owner. Hi, Cheryl. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me. Hello. See if that
You're
works.
in my ocean of love, and I'm so excited,
girl,
that you are here today.
Send me in your potion of the ocean. I dig.
Just turning up my volume so I can hear you. Ba-da-ba-da-boop, beep. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, Cheryl. I mean, I could read your bio, but I always feel like when you share your own story, there's so much more depth to it. I know you've been a chief fermentationist. You've been an owner at Contraband Ferments. You're now studying to be a functional medicine practitioner, health coach, sous chef. You're an artist. You're a writer. Fill in the gaps.
I know, right? When you say it like that, it sounds like Shmi of a million subjects or something. I'm Cheryl Paswater. I don't even know how to describe myself at this point. I am an artist. My first wave of life. So I have 2 master's degrees from the Pratt Institute. But on my sort of my own life journey, kind of started dealing with chronic illness and sickness and being pushed around the allopathic healthcare system, and sort of decided there's got to be better ways to do things. And so I actually got into fermentation around that time. Contraband Ferments totally started by accident. I had no intention on starting anything else other than really being an artist. And then many years of doing that, contributing to some books, writing for magazines, doing all kinds of different stuff, helping start some other fermentation companies around the world, consulting. I just was doing all this stuff, but I was spending, 30 minutes to an hour at the end of every fermentation workshop and at the end of every fermentation festival with people desperately seeking gut health, trying to find practitioners, all this different stuff. And I just sort of had enough. And I already sort of had been, working in some herbalism and health coaching and other things. But really, 3 years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, and really was just like, this is insane. All these people have comorbidities, we're all sick, whether we realize it or not. And because, we all got hit in different ways, and Contraband Ferments definitely took a significant hit. And luckily at the time, my wife was like, you've been wanting to go to functional medicine school for 5 years. It's time, go. And basically put a foot in my butt. And so I made these very short deadlines. I had about 2 days to apply to schools, and ended up at the School for Applied Functional Medicine. And so people have been like, why has Contraband Ferments been a little quiet? It's because I've been in functional medicine school full-time while working full-time, and moved and, various things. And I get to
tell us a little bit about that journey. What were these health issues you were dealing with? How did you find fermented foods in the first place? And sort of walk us a little bit through those early steps.
Well, the early steps I would say began with, realizing that the system was broken, very broken. And, I would go to the doctor and they'd be like, here's another round of antibiotics. I go to the doctor and here's another pharmaceutical, but I wasn't getting better. And I started working with a holistic practitioner at the time in New York City. Oh my God, I was so dirt poor. Walked into her, I went and sold all my music gear because I used to play a lot of music, and sold all my musical instruments, put a wad of cash on her table, and I was like, I will do anything you tell me to do. I'm going to die. I was like, I can't keep going like this. I was constantly having asthma attacks and sinus infections, and I was always sick. I was greenish gray, like Kermit the Frog. Just this like ongoing thing kind of kept happening. So the big thing start for me was just like making a lot of dietary and lifestyle changes. Getting gluten-free was a game changer for me. I didn't even know what gluten was. I remember leaving that first session and looking at my refrigerator and crying because I didn't know what it was. And I was like, I'm going to have to eat leaves and sticks for the rest of my life. And like, I've been a vegetarian for 15 years. All of a sudden it was like, I had already gone into that session. I was like, if this lady tells me I'm going to have to eat meat, I'm going to freaking learn how to eat meat. And I'm going to source good animals, and I'm going to learn how to honor the whole animal. Like, I had a really big sort of pivotal thing. And then about a year in, I couldn't afford to keep working with this holistic practitioner, as amazing as she was, and actually somebody near and dear to me to this day. I realized like I had a lot of the symptoms of like candida overgrowth, kind of fungal stuff. I'd had like long time stuff that I was starting to realize like I've had stuff since I was a kid. Like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
What is this about? When you start questioning everything. Everything.
Yeah.
And I spent a year on a candida cleanse. And at the end of the year, I healed my asthma. I never had another asthma attack. I had lost about 100 pounds. I was really thriving, and I was doing really well for a period of years. And then started having some like regressive stuff again. Fast forward, like we have to fast forward. Now it's like, oh, I was dealing with some lifelong mold toxicity, mycotoxin stuff, and parasites and heavy metals, and had some injuries from some unnamed things that will get us censored, so I'm not going to say it, amongst other things.
Right.
But,
well, no, and I think that the picture you're painting here is that when our bodies are sending us these messages of pain, of struggle, of challenge, it isn't just one thing that is the cause. There's a whole confluence. Like, there's toxins everywhere. There's mold that you can't even see, that you don't even understand, that could be creating these issues within you. The food is poisoned, right? The wheat is sprayed with glyphosate to desiccate it in the field so that it doesn't get moldy. But then what happens is now you're eating all of this poison. And so this is, so many people will travel to Europe and be like, oh my gosh, I can eat gluten here, but I can't in the United States. And so then we have to unravel a little further. Is it is it the food or what we're doing to it? Which I think is a really important question to ask. And that's why your point about sourcing is so important, because when you know your farmers, when you understand, what they're doing to the food in order to cultivate it and grow it, then you have a bit more control. And if you can have your own garden, if you can, fully take it into your own hands, which of course is its own effort and hobby and undertaking in its own right, then you can get more clarity. But, it's like you're saying, what I love though is this is what often happens to folks. Some folks, they start to go down this rabbit hole and they realize, what, I want to be someone who helps other people. And that's what I really love about the energy of your entire journey is, you started Contraband Ferments and you were making fermented foods for people. You were teaching classes. Tell us a little bit more about your fermentation experience.
Well, I had this summer I got into fermentation. I was subletting this apartment in Brooklyn. I had been doing this candida cleanse, having all these radical improvements. And the person I was subletting from had left her kombucha SCOBY behind. And I know, girl. And she was like, make some kombucha if you want. Didn't really tell me anything else. But I remember I was so dirt poor. I couldn't afford AC. I was riding my bike all over New York City. It's like stinky, hot, steamy July, Brooklyn. Like everything smells, you can't even afford the subway. I was just checking out all these books at the library all the time. And I was reading a lot of like Michael Pollan and Sally Fallon, the China study had just come out, like I was just reading
Mm-hmm.
like lots of stuff. And I really, and I think I'm naturally like a curious person. But I just remember sitting there and I don't remember exactly what I was reading, but it just occurred to me that like every culture in the world eats fermented foods but us, but we're the sickest. Like anything we have has come from other
Ding, 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 ding,
places.
ding, ding.
Yes. And I think just really the sort of, I don't know, big picture aha moment of just like the gut is everything. And if the gut is not working, nothing else is going to be working. And
Right.
like this, like, whoa, and of course it's more complex and there are nuanced things to all of this, but I think for me, that was really my big thing. And so I started fermenting and then I was like, I get a little, I want to say obsessive, but like just kind of like once I'm hooked on something and I'm interested in it, it's like, watch out world. Like, cause I'm like, I'm going to want to learn everything about it. I'm going to want to like, kind of, I like making things. I like picking things apart. I like experimentation. I mean, that's very much my artist's brain, right?
Right.
So I started making ferments. I was making too much. So I was just giving stuff to friends. The next thing I knew, I was selling stuff to friends and making like some extra side cash, which I desperately needed, riding around with like growlers of kombucha, like in the saddlebags of my bicycle and delivering them to Queens, like these, like insane, like to make like $25. Like it was like a little ridiculous, but I was really getting into it. So then I don't know. Next thing I knew, I had this like rogue fermentation, CSA, like totally a mafia, if you will. And then I was in the back of a coffee shop in a CSA. Eventually, I had a refrigerator chained up in an alley in Brooklyn. You would get the code, get your stuff, put your cash in the jar, lock it back up. I saved up enough money to go back to school, both to study fermentation, some health coaching and herbal medicine, just some other things that I was really interested in. And then the next thing I knew, I was teaching workshops and contraband ferments, kind of, you have a baby and you're like, wait a minute, what? It was like accidental pregnancy. Like,
With lots of babies, because it's a whole community.
Yes. Yeah. And
But
it just like this.
I love what you're saying right here. I just want to pause for a second because I think fermentation is a side hustle. It's a business that anyone can do anywhere to serve their community. And it doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life.
Right.
It's something that, like you're saying, we are starved for nutrients for our gut. And, as someone who works with small businesses, I help people grow from hobby brewer into a commercial enterprise. And I know you've also done that type of consulting work as well, is that it's a wonderful way to express your artistic side, to express your passion. And of course, there's safety that we follow when we're making these ferments, but also they're inherently really safe. And that's what makes them such a great thing to be able to make at home, because you don't have some of the dangers you might have with preparing other foods. And everyone's starved for them. And I think that when we can work with people and meet them where they are and give them these really nutrient dense foods, we really do open their minds and their bodies and their hearts to a whole other way of thinking about the planet, themselves, their bodies. We are a planet, we are an earth, we need all those nutrients, and the gut is our soil. And as we know, if we don't have healthy soil in the fields, even if we're pulling food out of there, that food isn't going to have the same nutritional value. Yeah. And so we really need to repopulate our own gut so that they're very healthy and robust, as well as nutrify the soil. And it's just the metaphors, the layer of metaphors are just so beautiful with all of that. And I love contraband because, like you said, it was this, kind of under the table DIY collective, and exactly. And then you take it to the teaching, which is what those of us who are really passionate always end up doing, is because we can't make enough to serve everybody. And so, then we end up teaching so that other people can go out and serve their communities, their families, and take it to the next level. So I really applaud you for that. And I love that you started a whole little movement in your little neck of the woods. Now, you're not in New York anymore.
I'm not.
Right. And I know that part of that was there's a lot of restrictions that happened in New York during the pandemic. And, not all of us felt that we absolutely had to follow the regulations that were being provided because especially those of us who have more connection to our bodies, to our health, who have more trust in our immune systems. We wanted to wait and see how things were going to play out before we decided to just, go all in on what the main narrative was. And so I really appreciate and applaud that, but it also makes it super tricky because then you have to figure out, well, now what am I going to do? Because all these other people around me are saying, do the thing, do the thing, do the thing. And yet my own research, my own body intelligence, my own understanding has led me to not want to do the thing. And so what was that like for you? How did you then navigate all of that?
Oh boy. Well, I guess a little backstory going into all of that is I have a history of injury from hokey pokeys, I guess we'll call it that. And I actually was illegally fired from my job. I worked in oncology for 10 years as an artist in residence, art therapist, and was illegally fired from my job with a medical exemption for refusal to get a flu shot 4 years before. So this is not my first rodeo. And, my overall arching thing is like, I believe that people can make their best decisions for themselves. I believe in personal choice. Whether that's my personal decision or not, doesn't matter. Your decision for yourself may be different than the decision for me. And I respect everybody's personal choice, but that's a thing, there needs to be choice. And also I believe in informed consent. And, for me at the time, I adore New York City. I love it. I miss it all the time. But when it started to get to the whole, things were getting a little too weird. Show me your papers, that kind of stuff does not sit well with me.
Where are we?
Yeah.
What time are we in?
Yeah. And just the general hate. And I think for me, anytime there is this constant thing of division, divide and conquer, it's this or it's this, it's black or white, it's this or this, it's one way or the other way, right? It's black and white thinking. There's no other, there's no nuance, there's no listening, there's no respect.
Right.
And I just, for me personally, that rubs the wrong way. I, believe in my private medical decisions also. I hate that it's come to the place where you have to declare your, yes or
status.
no on things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think you're getting at the heart of sort of what a lot of us are seeing as the world is shifting, right? And the pandemic has created a lot of change in terms of how we view things, how we talk about things, and, even the polarization in politics. And, things are continuing to try to create wedges between people. And at the end of the day, I just don't think that actually helps move anything forward. We always have way more in common than we differ. And I think especially those of us who are really passionate about health, who are passionate about, connecting with Gaia, using the herbs, right? Like herbalism is our medicine. That has been in every ancient tradition, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, Native American, homeopathy. You go to any culture, they have been using plants. And honestly, that's what pharma is built on, except you can't patent what's found in nature. And so then they want to extract the one thing, the two thing, except the reality is that plants require all the things. That's why they're in that matrix together, is because all of the elements are supporting each other so that you can use it safely. And when we try to remove one thing out of that or two things, we end up creating more problems than we actually solve, unfortunately. And we can even just look at how the history that pharma has taken in the United States. It's really gotten a stranglehold on our regulators. It's gotten a stranglehold on our healthcare system, which, we could argue is a sick care system. Yeah. And again, it's not to say that, people can't find benefit in pharmaceutical treatments. Absolutely. But I think they should be that last step, not the first step.
Agreed. And
unfortunately, we're not in a culture where the first step is, let's go to nature. Let's go to herbs. What's your diet? Stop eating the processed foods. It's so unfortunate that our system rewards cheap, low quality inputs through our subsidy system, pushes farmers into poisoning the heck out of their crops, all in the sake of like, oh, we got to feed the world. We got to feed the world. Well, we could feed the world a heck of a lot better if we actually look to how nature does things and do things in a regenerative way.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. It's been really challenging. It's been really divisive. And unfortunately, a lot of people have seen some negative side effects as a result of, trusting and going along with people who they thought had their best interests in mind, but really, had their own interests in mind.
Right. Well, I mean, like, fear's the diffuser of, the destructor of all things, right? And I mean, it's what, for me, it's like, it's sad that things have come to this. And, and again, division, but that's what they want, divide and conquer. They want us all to hate each other.
They could be a lot of different people, but you're not wrong, because it is about ultimately do the things I want you to do. Yeah. And part of that is, following along with all of the stories I'm telling you and trusting them. And but I think that what has fortunately happened is this has also created a wake-up moment where people are recognizing, and this is the hardest part about it, is because now you have to look back and say, oh, maybe I haven't been told the whole truth the entire step of the way. Yep. And that can really be challenging for folks who aren't ready to let go of that whole story, because you feel kind of foundationless and, where do I turn to next? But I will say this, everybody, right? We're human beings. We're made of dirt and earth and mud. And if anytime we can go back to the earth, grounding, sun, meditate, anything that's going to get us back into our bodies is going to be a valuable path. Like, start there. Yeah. And then, we can let go, we can forgive, we can move forward. But that's really the place we need to go first, is back to the earth. And so tell me a little bit about your functional medicine and your herbalism and how, right, clearly that's what you've done. You've gone back to the earth.
Yeah. I mean, not so much in the herbalism world, but, functional medicine. Yeah. I mean, it's been a wild ride. I've been able to keep contraband ferments going, and that will still be the plan. And it's been a little quiet over here, but, things will start amping up here soon. I just turned in my final exams last week, so we'll wait to see what happens. But, if you had asked me 3 years ago if I would be starting a functional medicine practice, working with people on their healing journeys, especially a lot of do a lot of chronic illness stuff. So parasites, mold, Lyme, I do all kinds of stuff, but especially some of the deeper stuff, I would have laughed at you. I mean, truly, it was both very exciting and kind of it was a direction I knew I wanted to go in. And it's been the best surprise, I think, of my, last 3 years. Can you guys hear me okay? Sorry.
I mean, I can hear you. It just is a little quiet.
Don't know why.
I assume you have one microphone.
See if that's any better. No, yes.
I mean, I still hear you the same. So
okay.
I turned up all my volumes, but
I'm so sorry. I dropped my.
No worries. I can still hear everything you're saying, though.
Okay. What was I saying? Oh, yeah.
So then what? So talk a little bit. What is the difference between functional medicine and herbalism? Because
I mean, herbalism is obviously plants, right? Plant medicine, which is amazing. Functional medicine is root cause medicine. So instead of just, slapping Band-Aids on things, or just slapping medications, what you're really doing is going backwards and figuring out, why is the body in a state of disease or dis-ease? Why is it not functioning to begin with? So what are the things that started the process? Because it's we can go slap things on it, but if we don't go back to the beginning of the things that caused the series of things to begin, those things are just going to keep coming back and keep happening. And we see this a lot, right? With people who have chronic illness, chronic issues, they're not getting well. And it's well, you're not getting well, or you got well for a couple of years, and then you find yourself having to redo that work because we didn't get to the root cause of why the things began with. And it's never one thing. It's a series of things. So like, a great example. In my case, it was antibiotics and genetic SNPs. I had poor methylation. I had poor ability to detox from a very early age, and then it was mold, like early life mold exposure. And, and it's taken, and of course it went undiagnosed. So stuff came back. I had to redo that stuff, so.
Well, and then they're just throwing antibiotics at something that's only creating more of a home for these opportunistic pathogens to then overgrow. And now you've got the candida, and now you've got, right. And so it leads to all these other unintended consequences because you're not looking at that root cause. And this is what I love about fermentation is because it has so many great probiotics, prebiotics, symbiotics, all the biotics. Yeah. And this is also why we advocate a diversity because, you don't just want to stop at kombucha, right? Kombucha is a gateway into everything else. You don't want to stop at yogurt, stop at sauerkraut. You want to incorporate a broad range of these. We want miso, we want tempeh, we want soy sauce, there's so many choices out there for what we can do. And all of them are going to have a benefit to your gut health. Now, of course, if you have a histamine issue or, you need some other type of gut repair before that happens. And that's probably where functional medicine can come in and help from a different perspective. But, I have to say, I'm someone who, while I have health insurance, I'm always going to see my acupuncturist, my herbal medicine person, my massage therapist before I'm ever walking into a doctor's office, just because, I trust the information I'm getting. I know they're not going to try to push me towards, some drug that has questionable side effects. And I'm going to be able to, it does. And the other thing, though, is that when you work from a functional perspective or root cause perspective, you might not get instant results. Nope. And so it becomes this commitment to yourself, this commitment to the journey. And, honestly, we're here for this, right? Isn't this what we're here to do?
Well, it's like I was explaining this to one of my clients the other day. I go, if you think about how long you've been sick, it's going to take double that to get well. Right? Because we're not covering up your symptoms. We're not slapping a Band-Aid on the thing. I was like, we're going to actually heal the thing. And I'm like, I don't heal you. I don't heal anybody. You heal yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm a consultant, I'm a guide, I'm a support. I learn a shit ton of stuff. Like, I'm going to teach you and teach you well. But I'm like, I don't fix you. You fix you. And I was like, and I won't work with anybody. That's one of my first questions. When I have a few questions I ask when I do my discovery calls. Because I'm like, and I tell everybody, I'm like, look, I'm interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me. This is a partnership. So, I'm like, I'm going to be in your deep, intimate stuff. I'm going to be in your poop. I'm going to be in your trauma. I'm going to be in your thoughts. I'm going to be like, we're going to do the thing. But, but also like you have to trust back and you have to want to be willing to do that work. So I'm like, if I ask you like, hey, do you believe you can heal yourself? And your answer is no, I won't work with you. I'll just say like, look, I would love to work with you, but you know what? I need you to go work on these things. And when you feel like you're ready, come back. We can totally talk about it. And, that's hard because it's like you want to help everybody, right? But if people aren't willing to do that work for themselves, it's going to just be a hamster wheel. And it's not going to be fun for them. It's going to be annoying for the practitioner. And you know what I mean? It's going to be frustrating for them. And then you're just going to keep doing the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to be on a hamster wheel. I want to help people get well and live in vitality and happy, thriving lives so you can go out in the world and do the crap you're called to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not wrong. And I think this makes a lot of sense. I mean, even allopathy is moving more towards personalized medicine. Of course, they have a different type of approach to it. But, remember, we're holistic beings, right? So much of our illness can also be traced back to traumas that we've experienced, right? And we don't even understand that. And so we need to be not only willing to approach it from a physiological perspective, but also from that emotional, spiritual perspective, because that's really where the healing is going to take place. And I love that you said, I'm not, right? Like, I'm not a healer. I am someone who can help you. You do the healing for yourself. That is really the only way that healing ever takes place, is when that person is willing to do it for themselves. And it can be miraculous. Certainly that can happen, but it also takes that willingness on the part of the person to engage you at that different level. So so when people work with you one-on-one, how do you help people, reclaim their health, their happiness, their vitality? What are some of the little tips and things you're doing with them?
One is just a really good health history, like a good one. We go back to the state of your mother's health when they were pregnant with you, all the way to the now. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things. And it's like, at the end of the day, I'm like, crap foods and toxins and stress are the destroyer of everything. Everything comes down to those things. But I'm going to prioritize toxins to the top of that list because that's my jam, on top of gut and all that. But we are being bombarded. Kids are being bombarded. It's the stuff we're putting on our skin, is the chemtrails in the sky, it's the crap being sprayed on our food. Even when your food, if you're buying organic and really sourcing it well, that doesn't mean that glyphosate isn't blowing in the wind and landing on those organic crops, right? There's a lot of things. It's the Wi-Fi and the 5G and it's like, look, technology is amazing. I always tell people, it's just like, emergency medicine is amazing. My arm gets ripped off, I want a surgeon.
Right.
There are things, it's like, yes, antibiotics can be life-saving, but they devastate the gut and they should be so bare minimally used, right? Like there's always going to be, like you said, like aim for the higher percentage of the other stuff and like minimal invasive stuff, the other stuff. And so, I think the big thing is, I'm like, number one, just like start cleaning up your environment. Your environment at home, what you're putting on your body, what you're putting on your kids, like
your detergent, scented candles, right? Like things that people don't even think about are, throwing chemicals into the air supply, and you don't even understand what's going on. And so right on, totally.
Yeah. And also like making sure that you are able to detox. Like cultures around the world have always used detox. It is a fundamental thing, right? And so it's like we have to be able to clear toxins, but the burden is so heavy. It's like we think of this as like a bucket. The bucket is always filling, and when the bucket starts to overflow, all these symptoms, all these things start to happen. It didn't happen overnight. The bucket's been filling. It's just all of a sudden now you're noticing like, oh, my joints hurt and I got a runny nose all the time, and I've got rashes and eczema and psoriasis and all this different stuff, right? But it's like the buckets have always been filling. So it's like, well, best defense, like start focusing on, how can we remove toxins? How can we clean up our home environments? That's a big place where I start with people, helping them to, get EMF biofield correctors in their homes, if that's necessary for them, getting their Wi-Fi on house timers, so it's turning off at night so we can just get a break from all that EMF. It's like we're EMF too, but it's like that's just like high dose radiation. Like what are we doing? Even when you look at like your iPhone, or your smartphone, it says not to put your phone up to your ear, that it causes cancer.
And then people are wearing them in their ear all the time, and that's where they're getting like cancers and different things. It's
and it's like it's not a judgment. It's you don't know what you don't know. Just like allopathic doctors, they don't know what they don't know. Just like but they've squashed that stuff for decades, right? It's like you look at the history of like the AMA, the American Medical Association, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers. A lot of stuff starts to make sense, right? So I'd like to start with toxins and just basic like things. Are you sleeping enough? Are you sleeping with your phone next to your head at night? Number one, get it out of your bedroom, right? Like, are you hydrated? Like things that people are like, really? That's so super simple. And like, what? I'm paying you money to do. But it's like, no, it's still part of the big picture. Like everything in place for the other things to work.
Right.
If you can't sustain staying hydrated with good, clean water, maybe some electrolytes, maybe a little of that, you're not going to be able to do the other work. Your body's not going to be able to clear the stuff, right? So it all plays in. Is your self-talk, how you talk to yourself in your mind, totally crappy? so, and for everybody, it's a little different. Like where we focus, it shifts, like, and so it's like, I have a client who he just couldn't tell if he was having normal bowel movements, even with like a Bristol stool chart. Like, if I was like, text me your dookie, just like text it to me in the morning,
picture, send it over.
And, so I'm getting these, dookie photos at, 8:00 in the morning and making my coffee, like whatever. I don't, and I don't care about that stuff. I mean, I have a lot of clients doing this and I'm like, on my iPhone, I'm circling, making arrows. And I'm like, do you see this? Do you see this? This is where, you know what I mean? Because they need to learn. It's education. Education is everything. And,
and what you said right there, we can't be afraid of our shit. Like literally, we cannot be afraid of it. Yeah. And it has different smells, it has different textures. And I mean that, of course, in all the meanings of what I'm saying here, right? Because we have to start with these basic things. And, for so long, like, oh, it's dirty, it's unsanitary, but it also is such a vital indicator of health and what's going on in your body because you're putting stuff in and stuff is coming out. You have to be willing to look at what's coming out as well, because that's going to offer an insight into how you can change what you're putting in so that what's coming out is what's supposed to be coming out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like, I tell everybody, like, make yourself hard to kill.
Exactly. Well, I truly believe the secret to longevity is to remain fertile, to maintain your fertility for as long as possible. And I think it's one of the biggest issues that people are having trouble with because they don't understand how all these environmental factors are playing into infertility. And so we go and we get these treatments and we take these hormones and we think that's what's going to do it. But at the end, in reality, like if you have a toxic soil, nothing can grow in it. And so how do we then re-nourish, revitalize, take those toxins out, get the mercury out of your mouth, get the fluoride out of your water, right? So that you can start to re-nourish. And this is the amazing thing about the planet Earth and human beings is we're constantly regenerating. We are starfish. Okay, maybe you can't lop our arms off and another one will grow back, but there's a lot of things we can do and that we can do to help us regrow. And, our cells are constantly changing. You are not the same person you were, just a month ago even, right? And each one has its own life cycle. But I think that's so important. And it's like the layers of an onion. And so this is why I really love the name of your podcast, Peeling the Onion, because it's like you'll peel off one layer and then all of a sudden another issue will emerge. And then you got to peel that layer. And so I've definitely noticed this in my own healing journey. So talk a little bit about your podcast and what you do with that.
Sure. So I have a podcast called Peeling the Onion Podcast. I co-host with my friend Nancy Campbell. Nancy and I met years ago in New York City, many years ago, actually at an acupuncture clinic. She was getting treated and I was illegally selling fermented ferments out of a mini fridge in the lobby. We really hit it off and remained friends. And I worked as her sous chef for many years. She's a culinary nutritionist. So we've gone way, way back. And then for about 2 years, she was really pestering me to do a podcast with her and start a podcast. And so we finally got our stuff together. And so, we just have a little, it's health and wellness and lots of different topics and a little this, a little of that. We've had a lot of really great, episodes come out this year. We have one that just came out this week with Dr. Zendi Moldenhauer, who runs Arbor Health in upstate New York. We did a whole episode on ADHD. But also on, she does a lot of work with like pans and pandas, Lyme, mold, all kinds of stuff. But that was really a blast. I actually got to hear her speak last year at a conference, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like mad crushing on the Zendi. So it's been really, I think, fun. And we just try to think of like, well, what are lots of different things? How do we, exactly like you're saying, how do we peel the onion? How do we bring our own life experiences in? How do we, give people just things to think about? I think questioning is always a good thing. I think when you can't question, that's a bad thing.
Agreed.
And it doesn't matter what it is, and it's like we all have to live in our own truth and find our own voices and do the things that speak to us. And, and so I think it's, hopefully our podcast helps people, sort of in that space as well. And, giving food for thought. And, we should always be growing and learning, and all of us,
well, and I think that right now, because there's so much thirst for knowledge, there's so much that people are starting to wake up to, those that are on this journey, right? Because like there's no reason why we should have the highest rate of chronic disease in this country if we supposedly have the best medical system.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just a lot of question marks in people's minds. We have so many labels, we have so many diagnoses, we have the highest rates of autism. Like we need to be taking a much harder, more scientific approach to understanding this stuff, and also the nutritional aspect of it. I mean, that blood-brain barrier. It's important that we're really, getting these things out of our heads, because that's where it's then causing all of these sort of issues. And so we need to hear it from a lot of people, from a lot of perspectives, from a lot of different voices. So I'm really excited that Peeling the Onion is out there. And then how do people get to work with you, Cheryl? Let anyone who's intrigued and wants to learn more about you and what you offer.
Well, you can find me at CherylPaswaterFunctionalMed.com. I'll put it here in the chat in a second. And also contrabandferments.com, and you can find me at peelingtheonionpodcast.com as well. The podcast is on iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher and all those things. We also, you can broadcast directly off our website. We also have a book club. So books that ourselves and our guests have been recommending, from every episode. So that's been really cool. So you can kind of go if you're looking for some good reads. And I think, the big thing is, just it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to question things. It's okay to disagree with people. And, I think if we've learned, anything from the last 3 years, in particular, it's just like, try to assume the best in people, whether you're on the same page.
And healthy discourse, right? Yes. And everyone's doing the best that they can. Like I had friends who felt it was in their best interest to, take the shot, and they felt really supported by it. That's wonderful. That's their choice. And that's something that really helped them and other people, right? Like to your point, I think we need to trust our own wisdom. We live in our bodies. No one else can experience what we are experiencing in our physical body. And therefore we need to maintain that autonomy to be able to say that, this is my body. This is what's right for me. You can do what's right for you, but it doesn't mean that I have to do what you do just so you feel good about doing it, right? And, it was just unfortunate because there wasn't any counterpoint to those who were questioning, to those who were not sure and then felt pressured in a way, and then, maybe didn't have such a positive outcome. And so hopefully what we can get out of this experience is that, we all have a way to be, to really listen to those deep inner voices and figure out how to really care for ourselves in a deep way and really trust that intuition. I mean, I truly believe that all human beings have the capacity for clairvoyance, clairaudience. Like we're psychic beings as well as physical beings. And it's just to what degree are we practicing? Are we leaning in? Are we listening to those intuitions in order for us to be fully united in all that we're capable of as human beings? And so just really appreciate your viewpoint and all that you have to share with the world. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here on Mama Monday. And we'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thank you for having me. Oh, yeah, let me put the stuff in the chat. And thanks for people for coming. I mean, I think we are all, especially if you got into fermentation, we're all in it because we want to see, people thrive. It's what's the point?
Yes.
If it's microbes, just like there's
microbes are magic, and we're bacteriosapiens. We need to have a healthy relationship with our environment, and it's really hard to do when companies are poisoning us, or we're being told it's our fault that the climate change is happening, when in fact it's the loads of toxins that are constantly being flushed out into the ecosystem, and then good luck Mother Earth trying to fix that, but you shouldn't shower as much. You know what I mean? It's just the messaging I think is so challenging, because it puts so much onus on the individual when really the burden needs to go back on the corporations that are doing the poisoning in the first place, right?
Oh, 100%.
And you know, God love plastic, God love technology, but these things also have their drawbacks. And so I think the more we can use them in ways where they're tools that forward the way that we think about things, as opposed to becoming things that we're enslaved to, is really, we can make that decision, right? Only we can figure out how to put those healthy boundaries on things, but it's something we really need to do to so that we're using them as tools. You know, a lot of people are all afraid of AI and this and that because we've been fed a steady diet of scary movies. And, you know, if you're never thinking about things in a way that can create a positive outcome, of course, you're going to be polluted in the mind by these really scary outcomes. And the reality is, can be absolutely the opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's like nothing's black and white. Keep broad lines. And also, you know, that, you know, the law of nature always rules.
It does. We are nature. We can't get away from that.
And that's why I love fermentation. That's why I love the microbiome so much. That's why I love the mitobiome so much. God, I never thought I would love something more than the microbiome. I was so into it. And then I discovered the mitobiome, and it was like, oh my God, mitochondria.
There's biomes within biomes within biomes. We are the Matryoshka.
I mean, that's a deep rabbit hole, you know, if you've done anything with mitochondria. So, you know, but it all plays together. Like, we're mostly microbes. We are of earth. We are of nature. We, you know, like, those things are fundamental, and fermentation comes from those things. It mimics nature. It mimics, you know, so it's like, I think it's so cool how it all sort of melds and manifests together.
Yes. Well, thank you for the work you do and your messages, and such an honor to have you here, Cheryl. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be following you and along for the ride. So thanks.
Ew. All right. I love you.
Love you too.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this preview here on YouTube. If you'd like to hear the rest of this interview, along with other useful resources such as show notes, links, and special offers, we'd love to extend an invitation for you to join our Kombucha Camp Plus Bubbles with Benefits member rewards program. By becoming a member, you'll earn bubbles with every Kombucha Camp purchase for free products, and that's not all. We also offer birthday Booch Day rewards, access to members-only sales, high-quality bonus content, including Kombucha Clutch Hangs with me, the Kombucha Mama, and my special guests, a free digital brew journal to track your master brews and experiments, and more. Now here's the best part. It is only $7.99 a month, or $79.99 for the year. You get 2 months free with the annual membership. You can learn more and join our Bubbles with Benefits program at kombuchacamp.com/kombuchacamp+.html. Don't forget, that's camp with a K, because we're cute and clever over here. And don't forget, trust your gut.